Motorhome Talk. I'm Mike and I love to talk about motorhomes. Well, today I'm going to tell you about our first trip as full-timers. This trip we drove from Mississippi, and the first stop was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then from Chattanooga, Tennessee, we drove up to Fort Chisholm Campground, which is in Max Meadows, Virginia. Then from Max Meadows, we drove up to Hummelstown, Pennsylvania, which is in the Hershey area. And then from Hershey, we drove up to Palinville, New York, and then on up into Lake George, New York. Now, as I said, this is our first trip as full-timers because before we just used our motorhome and ran to our house in Washington State because we had to cut the lawn because it grows a lot with all the rain in the Seattle area. Well, on this first trip, we learned a few things. Newbies in the world of full-timing, and I've read about this, that you've got to watch the length of time that you drive, but I totally ignored that. Well, not anymore. I found that my trip I had planned, my daily driving was about 5 hours, sometimes 5 hours plus, which is way too long. So we're going to have to rethink that and retool that, and we're going to cut back maybe 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, something along those lines. And the second thing we learned also is that my wife and I, we get up pretty early in the morning, like about 5 o'clock in the morning. This is just kind of what we do. We have coffee and then we mess around on the computer for a little bit, and we're ready to go around 7:30. And this is kind of what we carried through on this trip up to upstate New York. However, we found that when we left at 7:30, 8 o'clock, we would often arrive at campgrounds, in particular around 1 or 1:30. Well, then we found out that they won't let you in till about 3. So that became a problem. Now, some campgrounds, not so much. I think one of them had an entrance time of around 1. But we ran into one that said, no, you can't come in before 3. So I said, well, we'll just kind of hang out at your wait to come in place on your property. And they said, no, we don't have a place that you can wait to come in. You can't come in here till 3. So I said, whoa, that presents a significant problem. What are we going to do now? Well, eventually she wrote back and said, I'll tell you what, I can get you in at 2. So I said, so we've got a half an hour to kill. So what we ended up doing is we ended up stopping on an off-ramp on the interstate. Well, that's nuts. So we're not doing that again. So these are little things that we learned, because I thought all places had a little place that you'd come in and wait to go into the campsite, but not this particular one. So that's one of the major things that we learned there. So we took off, and our first stop is going to be in Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is our first stop at Holiday Travel Park in Chattanooga, and it is a one-night stay. It's a nice park. It's an older park. I have to admit it's a little tight coming in and out. When they first placed me, they placed me in an area that was kind of tight, but they were very helpful in moving us. And if you're in Chattanooga, this would be a nice place to stay. And for a one-night spot, it's right off of 75, pretty easy to get to. So I would recommend staying at least one night here. Okay, I just wanted to let you know this is our first stop. And even though it's Chattanooga, it actually is a little bit over the line into Georgia, but it's really close and would be a good spot to look at the city of Chattanooga. Okay, thank you. This is our second night on the road to the Finger Lakes in New York, and we stayed at Fort Chiswell in Max Meadow, Virginia. It's a very, very nice park. Easy, very easy off of 81. Would highly recommend staying here. Beautiful day, quiet, and we look forward to our next stop, which is going to be Hershey, Pennsylvania. Very nice park. Well, this is where we stayed for night 2 of our trip to the Finger Lakes. This is a Harvest Host, and it's called the Antique Automobile Club of America Museum. And it's in Hershey, Pennsylvania. That's the Hershey Kisses. And very nice, very quiet. It was a little ride from the interstate, I will say that. And the parking, either call ahead, because when we got here, they wanted us to park in a lot that just wasn't adequate for us. So we ended up parking behind the museum on a road that goes around and back, so we didn't have to unhook, and we could park like a bus, and we were relatively flat. But this is our first Harvest Host that we've stayed at, so I'm going to try to take some pictures inside. I've heard good things in the reviews about the Automobile Museum, so we'll see how it plays out. Okay, thank you. It's a 1905 Cadillac. And this is a LaSalle, which apparently was a division of General Motors, and they marketed it as a luxury brand. These are the various engines that are in the Tucker automobile. And I did not know that the Tucker automobile has its engine in the rear. News to me. That's the TV, yeah.
BMW, no, Daddy didn't know that. And if they
That was
cutest
something.
thing ever.
That is a pretty interesting little car.
It's got three.
This is a train section where they have electric trains. You got a lot of everything here. It's kind of nice, and cars are real interesting. I'm more a car guy than a motorcycle or a train guy. But interesting, nice place to visit, and with Harvest Host you can stay here. You have to call ahead and they accommodate you. This is our view from the back of the Antique Automobile Club of America, and it's a real quiet and pretty view. They want us to park out front, but with the size of the rig, we talked to them, and this is a much better spot than where they wanted to park. There's another fellow up there from Harvest Host, but that's a real tight spot for a 45-footer. Beautiful view, nice and quiet, and we look forward to our next stop. This is stop 3 on our way up to Lake George. This is the Rip Van Winkle Country Club. It is a Harvest Host country club. It's a small, privately owned golf club, and it's very, very nice, very quiet, beautiful place to stay. We don't play golf, but we did go into they had the tavern open tonight. They have a restaurant, which is supposedly excellent from what we read from some of the reviews, but it's closed on Wednesday night, which is the night we were here. But the owner, very, very helpful. I had problems with my Jeep. Apparently I did something where the battery died, and I did not have jumper cables because I'm new to this whole deal here. But he had jumper cables, came out, gave me a jump, got the Jeep going, and I think I solved the reason why the battery is dead. I had left it on accessory instead of shutting it off. So I think that was the problem. But here's our Newell at the Rip Van Winkle Country Club. John, the owner, excellent. It was a very, very nice day. Would highly recommend spending the night here. Coming from the south, it is a little twisty-turny to get here, but well worth the stay. There was a car that was blocking where we parked, so we had it moved, and it's very, very comfortable now. Just wanted to share this with you. Thank you. We are at the Lake George RV Resort in Lake George, New York. There's the motorhome. It's a large resort, swimming pool, quite high end. The area is packed tightly, but as you can see, the trees between the sites are very nice. So far, so good. We just arrived today, so we will let you know how things go. We're going to head into Saratoga Springs. Lake George RV Resort in Lake George, New York. You can see they have tennis courts and basketball courts, and they have little cabins for housing. It's a huge RV resort. There's the swimming pool, clubhouse, and people coming in. There's a lot of outlet malls on the road you use to enter, so it's real congested this time of year. But they said that Saratoga Springs is its first racing this weekend, so I guess we picked a pretty busy weekend. But it's a nice park, and we'll let you know how things go. We're going to go to Fort Ticonderoga in New York tomorrow. This is Ulysses S. Grant, former president of the United States, and I'm going to go on a tour high on a mountain here in upstate New York. Lived here during his last days, June 16th to July 23rd, 1885.
Died in, fact, we're looking at the bed, the exact bed that he died in. Grant had a lot of...
We're at Fort Ticonderoga, and on our way up to the fort, this is the King's Garden and where the boat tours leave from. Apparently you can take a tour, 75-minute boat tour, takes you around Lake George. We elected not to do that today. We're going to go up to the fort and see what goes on there. But first, my wife wanted to see the gardens. So we are at this particular part of the fort looking at the gardens. This is the pavilion, which overlooks Lake George, and we're going to go down to the water and see what's going on down there. There's the lake, and I think across the way is Vermont, if I'm not mistaken. And then another view of the pavilion. This is inside the King's Garden. Very quiet. Fellow's cooking some meal here, so that's their kitchen. This is a reenactment that they put on here. This is Fort Ticonderoga. Over there is Vermont, and that's Lake George. Well, that was Fort Ticonderoga, and that was up in the Lake George area. Also, when we were there, we visited Saratoga Springs. Now, Saratoga Springs is a big horse racing town, and it's also known for spas and mineral baths and things along those lines. I didn't take any videos of these because we did go to Saratoga Springs, the downtown area. It was a lot of shops and shopping and cars and people. So I think you've kind of seen all that. But it was nice if that's your thing and you like to shop there. It's fantastic. We also did go around the race course, and we didn't stop for a long time, and I didn't take a lot of pictures because it was crazy. It was the first day of racing, and there were people and cars and traffic, and like, wow, it was just nuts. But it was interesting to see. The other thing I thought I'd mention is that because it's known as a spa town, they have old spas that go way back. And my wife wanted to get a massage at one of the spas, and she chose the Roosevelt Spa, which is in a nice park. And it was very pretty, very well done. And my wife said the spa and the massage was excellent. I will tell you, it's really popular, and she had reservations, and I'd highly recommend reservations. But she did enjoy that. And the other thing that we did see when we were there is President Grant cottage where he died, and we decided to check that out. And I got to tell you, it was interesting. And I'm a big Grant guy. I like to read about Grant. I've read about Grant, and it was interesting. But I got to tell you, the tour was only about 3 small rooms, and it was okay. But I don't think I'd sign up for that. That's just me. And like I said, I'm a big Grant guy. So there's a couple of things that we did do. And the next video will be our continuation of our trip in upstate New York. Thanks for watching.